John Split,
Here.
Terry Robita, Sarah Willett.
Okay, well, we do have a quorum. If we would need anything to vote on, I don't think we have anything. Approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Dave, second by Billy to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Past minutes.
Motion to approve.
Mo-
Second that.
Motion by Dave, second by Billy to approve past minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial report.
I don't have mine from last time. It's the same, isn't it?
We do have, let me look at this because it hasn't changed, right? We have,
I don't think it's changed from last, I looked at it this morning.
because we did get that 2,000 for this year's budget from the city, so,
For 22.
for 2022, yes.
Where is that on here?
That's what I'm kind of looking for that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it would show up here. I didn't see that either, but you
It's
said.
only February.
Maybe they hold it in a different account. Well, they'll hold it in the general account, I believe. But we should, I'll make a note and ask Karen, you know, where it is sitting and if it should be on here. Budget money.
You said it's 2,000?
Yes.
Just be nice to know the balance and all that good stuff.
Okay.
Usually it's just kind of penciled in here.
Usually, yeah, it's always highlighted.
No, I don't think it's on there.
I will ask.
Okay.
So I will take a motion from somebody,
I'll make a motion. We accept.
except with me checking on.
Checking on.
Okay.
Yeah. The balance.
Motion by Billy, second by Sarah to look into the financial report balance, budget money. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I don't believe there's any public comment.
No?
We have no certificates to approve. So we can go right into the design manual guideline. And this was actually put together by Ripon Main Street and the Historical Preservation Commission. I don't know exactly when it was put together. It was 2008? Okay, thank you. So yes, it's been a while, and I apologize. We probably should have went through it years ago, or a couple years ago, but I guess I just never thought of it myself to do it. So I'm kind of glad we're doing it, because things change a lot.
Are we going to attempt to do it all tonight?
No,
Okay.
no, we could set a time limit if we want to right now before we get too far. Like, if we want to just talk about it for 20 minutes or a half hour, how about, I don't care.
I think maybe I'd like to recommend that we select areas that we read up on,
Okay,
and then we read up on it and discuss it next time.
certainly, if that's the consensus of what we want to do, sure.
Yeah, it's not that I'm trying to pass it off, I just know we've got some stuff going on tonight.
Sure.
And it would be, I have not read it myself, so I'd be kind of doing
Right.
a disservice to you all.
We don't need a motion to okay that, but I think if everybody's in agreement with that, we can do that.
Sure.
I think what would help me, you guys, and you can completely disagree, I think there's just been inconsistencies when we get together. There's different situations, people coming in, wanting approvals. We're fast to say yes to things because we want to be forward-thinking, others we question. I think for me, it's just trying to understand how we can harness some consistencies and to utilize this as kind of that leveler. And that's what it was probably designed for. I read it. There's a lot of information.
There is.
Not everyone needs all of the information all the time, so I think of it as a wonderful reference, a manual, if you will. So I think we've got to be just thoughtful in how much time we put into each section. I'm not sure it's all necessary.
Okay, that's good, that's a good point. And that's why we're here to, we don't have to go through it word by word, and,
Well, I think some areas will be pretty self-evident that we can just
Right.
Kind of.
Less the urinal section.
not necessarily skip over, but cruise through it
right.
quicker than other spots or areas. in that.
I agree. I mean, and some things may come easy to Eric and I because, and Billy, we do construction or whatever, and others are, other people can't see it or, what guidelines are, what they're talking about, certain parts of a
Yeah.
facade and things like that, so.
So I guess one question that I have for the group, and again, I consider myself new to the board, because this is a guideline, it's not a fundamental yes or no, it's not ironclad. Because it's so subjective, how do we as a board determine when any of these apply and when they don't apply? I mean, as an example, with my building at 205 Watson, I didn't follow all of the guidelines set forth here. I didn't know I was being a rule breaker, but I did. How do we decide when, where, how this is to be upheld, I guess, is a question I have for us as a group. I don't know the answer.
And truly, I don't have the answer either. I think each project probably will be a little different. I mean, somebody comes in and they just want new window frames. Yes, they're going to be thermal panes. They're going to be, aluminum frames at a certain color. Yours, as an example, larger scale, whole new facade.
Right.
And
In the manual, it recommends that you don't go after materials that aren't original or authentic to the era. Well, we did.
And that's the biggest thing that, we have to look into because they've come up with PVC material like was used on the front of yours. And I mean, it's mimics the original. It's not going to rot. There's very little maintenance with it, and that's what people, I think, are looking for. And again, that's one thing we'll have to make the correction on.
Right, or we need to just change the barometer so we know, we want people to be progressive and forward-thinking and saving all of our gorgeous buildings, but we can't handcuff them to the standards that were set forth in 2008 without conversation. Craig, do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
So I think perhaps one of the maybe misguided thoughts that's out there is that you have to renovate to the period that the building was built, and that's not true. Preservation, you can pick the era. You can say, I want to renovate my building like the 1950s, and that's perfectly acceptable. So some things, I don't think it's quite as cut and dry as saying this material can be used and this material can't. With aluminum storefronts, I don't think I think we started drafting this in '92 when I came here, and aluminum storefronts and aluminum doors were already being utilized. So I don't think the intent was ever to say no aluminum framing or that kind of stuff. I think at that point, the colors were so limited that the thought was we didn't want to see just shiny aluminum like most of the of the doors were at that time, and also those window storefronts. So I think we've come a long ways and making some notes about I think the state has also been more lenient, and anodized framing is certainly much more acceptable than maybe picking red or picking something like that. But I don't know if we have to get into the debating color schemes and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it's subjective, and what I think is good architecture, the next person, Kathy Lee may not think is good architecture. So we just have to kind of like look at the whole. The other thing is, it's important to look at the entire building. Sometimes it's more important to get a little bit on the front of the building and give on the back or give on the side, or maybe there's give and take. So maybe it's not, especially if you're not doing a historic tax credit project, these are written for tax credits. That way, somebody goes after the tax credits, they're not misled about what's allowed and what's not allowed. So I think having that give and take is important for this body to recognize.
Okay.
I feel like when we did the thing on the wall, the mural, we kind of looked at their situation, and then we looked at what was in here as a perfect situation, and we tried to come up with a compromise. I don't think we really stuck to this or gave in to them. It was kind of a balance. Is that how you guys remember it?
Well, and the mural is a whole different.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get
it
that.
is,
I'm just
right.
saying as a commission, that's how we, went through that, because it didn't really line up, but it was a challenge.
Because we're a commission and then Craig, you have headed up the Main Street for so many years, how often do you guys as a board, do we as a board see people come to us for advice or for counsel on how to proceed versus going directly to you, Craig? I don't know if you know.
Most recently, the majority of that discussion has happened with the Preservation Commission.
Okay.
So usually if there's questions about suppliers, if there's questions about different, for instance, yesterday or a couple days ago, I was talking about, with Eric, about where to find tin ceiling and that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
a lot of times I'm more the problem solver
Yeah.
with the individual. When Ken was tuck pointing his building, talking through the mortar formulas and that kind of stuff, and explaining why you would want to do something that's deemed maybe not as substantial or concrete. Why would you put lime into something when you can use 100% Portland cement? It's like, well, that causes problems. So being able to explain those differences and then working that out with the contractor, I think that's been my role over the years. And some people have great need, and others have done this stuff before. It's
Okay. Well, I think we should go into something like Kathy Lee said and just kind of pick 3 or 4 or whatever number of topics that we want to look into. And then, we can all study up on those for next month and then discuss them if we have questions on them, or if we feel confident that we understand it, then we can move on to, 4 or 5 more different ones. And I'm open to suggestions, what somebody would like to look into. Kathy Lee, if you had a thought on one that you wanted to start with.
I think that awnings, signs and graphics, sign ordinance, those 3, we study that quite a bit, and it's something that comes to us probably more often than roofs or lighting.
I tend to agree with that. I think the biggest issue we continually run into is signage. That's probably the number one thing. I mean,
Yeah.
There's a building downtown I don't think they ever got a permit for, and I would almost be willing to guess that their signage is not even according to the city ordinance, much less historically correct. And so, I guess with that being said, Adam, is there anything that can be done retroactively? I mean, if it doesn't even fall underneath the ordinance, the city ordinance, forget about whether it's historical or not, but if it doesn't even follow the city ordinance, is that something then that Sue
Yeah,
sends them a letter on and says, you have to,
you can sit here and send them saying it's non-compliant, but are we going to get to the point where we're fining people or taking down their signs? I don't know if we'll get to that point to gain compliance with it. Certainly, I think at the same time, I would have to look at their signage and see exactly what's non-compliant based on the code to determine, if they're even close. Them not coming to this body for a certificate of appropriateness for that, that just kind of is a double, they're double non-compliant. They may have not gotten a permit from the city and they didn't come get a certificate of appropriateness.
well, if you're on Main Street and they didn't come before this board, then they didn't get a permit either.
Yep.
Because Sue always, at least within the last couple of years, has directed, has not just written a permit without saying you also need to get the certificate.
Yeah, and
True.
And, I certainly don't know the history of that particular sign and what was done or not done. Certainly, I can check with Sue again, but I don't know what sort of appetite Sue's going to have to, say, let's go after this business for, not getting this sign permitted appropriately. That's just something we'll have to work through.
As far as going after them, are they even aware?
Well, I can't answer, I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
it
I
may be a
don't,
matter of just talking to them and
Correct, where an initial letter might just
Yeah.
solve the issue right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, don't they have to have a permit? I don't know how they could get that far.
well, you
Well-
can-
Well, as far as I know, the structure that I'm thinking of in general is on the 300 block. And I believe it was one day there was no signage and then all of a sudden there's two sticking out from the building and one big one way across the front and so, and like I said, I haven't looked at the sign ordinance again lately to see. I know we can have outcropping signs along with signs that are on the building, but I don't know if having two sticking out from the building is part of that or is a problem with that or not. And so I can't say for sure if it's conforming with the ordinance or not right offhand. It just appears to me like it's not. And I can guarantee that I've been on this board since before they put that store in down there, and I know that we've never seen a permit for it.
Right, yeah.
So, for instance, there's different categories under the signage. On page 29, there's a section that pertains to projecting signs. Whether this is right or wrong, this is written, it says only one projecting sign is permitted.
Are you in the guidelines right now, Craig, or the
Yes.
ordinance?
Yes, in the guidelines.
Okay.
Which I believe is based off of the ordinance, but I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
But the paragraph that's projecting signs toward the bottom of the page, page 29, only one projecting sign is permitted per building, provided no other signage exists. So it also talks about, in the next sentence, it talks about 9 square feet per projecting sign. That 9 square feet is probably too small. So there's a lot of stuff.
9 square feet is too big.
Yeah,
Right now, the current sign ordinance is 6 square feet.
6 square feet.
3 by
Correct.
2, yeah, 3
2
foot.
by 3 or 3 by 2 is in essence all of the projecting signs that I've done over the last 3-4 years.
Because even that is small.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, but that's what it is right now, and then there's a certain height that it has to be maintained off from the sidewalk.
But I think you bring up the point of making sure that your guidelines are consistent with ordinance. And if that's not even the case, you know, we need to address that, you know, pretty quickly, I would say.
Do you know if the other one has been updated more recently than this?
The sign ordinance?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
I've-
you guys are talking about ordinances versus design guideline, is that what it is? Yeah, that would be that then.
My guess is the sign ordinance has not been significantly modified. It was adopted in like 90, something like that. And it was extremely controversial when it was passed.
I do think Susan, the building inspector, is following the city ordinance, and it's not matching up with this design guidelines. So Adam's right, we do need to go back to the city ordinance, which is 6 square feet versus the 9 square feet.
Unless you want to make the ordinance 9, then forget it.
Right, and that's up for discussion
I'm
too.
not worried about that. I guess I'm more concerned about the fact that there's people downtown that just go ahead and do
Yeah.
without getting
And there's
going
no
through the proper
consequence
steps.
ever.
Yeah, and we've set a precedence with the sign on the Treasury building that we did levy a fine after a warning and a discussion on it. Not saying we're going to find this certain person on Watson Street, but I think Dave brought up a point, maybe we should just have a face-to-face talk with them and explain what our sign ordinance is and start with that.
I thought we brought that up already.
We
I think we're all
did, and
talking about the same
1,000
building,
times.
right?
I'm not going to throw Susan under the bus, but it might sound this way. I think she's been made aware of it. I'll have to check with her that she may have sent out a letter already to the owner of the store. I don't know what the procedure, what she did, but yes, we've talked about this numerous times.
Yeah, months ago.
How long's the sign been there?
Year and a half.
I would say
Yeah.
at least a year, yeah, about a year. Or over, yeah.
Probably should have been addressed long before now.
Yep. Better late than never. At least we could talk to her.
I just think some consistency, so whenever we are in a situation where we need to provide an opinion or a handhold, we're at least consistent.
So Kathy Lee, did you say awnings also? Or just,
I did only because I think recently we had to.
yes,
Yep, with the awnings.
right.
With an awning, being a graphic being on an awning.
I think those 3 would be a great place to start. Those are 3 of the most brought up ones.
Signage, awnings, what's the third, Kathy Lee?
A sign ordinance.
We said awning, signs, graphics.
Yeah, awnings,
Yes.
signs and graphics.
And the sign ordinance.
Okay.
So it's the
And I mean, that
bottom
doesn't
3
have
on the
to
table
be
of
good.
contents.
Something else you'd rather do.
I didn't even bring mine.
Oh,
So those 3 would be great for next month. And we'll just have to figure out, I hate to volunteer myself, but I guess I could look at the city ordinance unless Adam would like to look.
We can we'll take a look at it, and
Okay.
I'll talk to Sue about things on Thursday, and just see what, if anything, has been done, and see what path we want to take. You know, certainly I get it, but I also, are we going to be telling somebody to take down their sign? Are we going to get to that point? I don't know, you know.
a
So-
long time ago, we had a guy, Becker, what was his first name?
Aaron,
Eric Becker. And he said, this commission has no teeth. We can't really chomp and direct anybody in any direction. We have to educate, and we have to be a source for them. But as far as he knew, there's nowhere, anywhere that gives us an authority to do all that.
And I disagree more with him, but I do agree with him on some of it. But we do have, ordinances in place that, are followed, and 99% of the people
Yeah,
approach Craig, and then they approach Susan Leahy for building permits, and then it comes to us. So I think it is working. I think it's a good policy that we have,
yeah.
an ordinance, but sometimes things slip through the cracks.
Fines and things are where it's going to get hairy.
So I think really the idea is also to slow things down, have people think and review what they're doing before they just start doing it. This is the exact same thing that happened with the sign. If you have somebody just start a project downtown where they start ripping off some facade, or, stopping and thinking and educating, and then ultimately every certificate of appropriateness, or for that matter, maybe other approvals, go to other committees or the Common Council. So this commission has, I think, that purpose of sort of slowing it down, making sure that everything is being addressed, and so that somebody isn't just putting up signage or doing a project that is ultimately going to, cause harm to a building or not fit, in the aesthetics of the downtown. And so that's how it's been explained to me.
I agree, and I do think, we had a discussion last month too about working with Ripon Main Street, Ripon Historical Society, our Preservation Board, and all kind of working together. I mean, it's all the same goal. We want the project completed, we want it to look nice, and just keep the open communication on all of that is the best thing.
So if you want, we can meet next month. I can have the screens up with the actual text, and we can just go, page by page or line by line, or however you want to do it.
Okay.
Section by section, so it's projected up there, and you can, whatever you want to do. So
Yeah.
it's efficient. So we're not just,
The sign ordinance isn't very big.
Yeah, we can bring that too and everything.
There's not much to it.
Pretty certain the sign ordinance is at the end of the document as an appendix, but I'm not certain.
Do we feel that those three are enough to do in one meeting? To start with those three?
As long as we don't have 4 certificates.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do more than that.
Okay, that's, because we'll have discussion on
Correct.
things, and if Adam has it on the screen, okay, that's good. I'm just going through the other ones, like the lighting, pedestrian-oriented design. Sounds a little complicated to me, but I don't know.
It does.
Continuation of storefront elements, blank sidewalls of buildings, landscaping. There is landscaping involved downtown, but not probably like you would think on a residential home or anything. Screening, parking, that's huge, but I don't know if it does fall under historic preservation, but I think it falls more under like the Ripon Main Street and the city of Ripon itself, because they actually own the parking lots. Infill structures, we do have some blank
But it's
lots
not about-
downtown, and that might come up someday, where somebody wants to put in a building on one of the empty lots where that fire was. So that would be interesting to get everybody's perspective on that. Roofs, trademark building design, that I don't understand right now off the top of my head, to be honest with that.
That's more of a, like McDonald's Burger King. So
Oh,
if one of those.
okay,
For a
gotcha.
while, some of those franchises were opening in downtowns.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing you want is for a McDonald's to tear down a facade or tear down a building and then put up their
Something that
corporate
matches
architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
licensing
And
and
that,
whatnot.
that's actually, I never really thought of that. That's a good point, you know, you could have somebody come to downtown, especially now with the downtown so busy that they might want to throw in a Burger King or a McDonald's or something.
And it may not be that, it might be like a lesser, it could be a Jimmy John's, it could be a Cousins, and where those franchises have certain guidelines that the franchise requires that just knowing, for instance, Edward Jones is a great example. Greg has expressed interest in the past about renovating his building, and he wasn't certain whether Edward Jones, the corporate office, would allow him to deviate from backlit signs or things of that nature. And what I was able to do is do some research with the state and find, hey, there are other Edward Jones offices or there are other American Family Insurance offices that you don't need to have the backlit sign that's 3 foot by 10 foot. So,
Okay.
and the trademark building design, it's not just what's good for the downtown, but it's also what's good for the community. So that, like Cedarburg, they have controls, and Pewaukee, they have controls on their architecture, so that you don't just get a strip that looks the same in Ripon and Rice Lake, and so you want to have that a little bit more uniqueness because our community is more special than those communities. So being able to deviate from that corporate architecture.
Good.
John, I just had one question. When you said that parking wouldn't be something that we really spoke about, it would be more Ripon Main Street and the signage and stuff. Is that the case? Because the owners of these buildings actually work with us.
Well, I guess, yes. I mean, the locations of the parking, but we would be, I think we should have some sort of input on where the signs, shape of the signs, what they look like,
Me too.
where they're located also. Craig did do, or have the state come in and, not the state, I'm sorry, it was
It's a private consultant.
okay, a
With
consultant
the
or,
state.
yeah. And a lot of times it's best just to defer to the person that has done it every day for his living, where signs are located, but
If they've done.
I think we should still have a say in, maybe it should be here instead of where this other person suggested it. But yes, I think we should have some sort of
Input,
input into it.
right?
Okay, building codes, handicapped access, and then it goes to low-interest loans and grant programs. And just quickly, do the banks offer that, Craig?
You know, we stopped doing that a few
Okay.
years ago because it was actually more complicated. Banks, and there's different leadership at the banks now than there was a few years ago, but it was easier for the bank just to say, rather than giving you a $20,000 low-interest loan for your project, we will just do one big loan and adjust the interest rate accordingly. So there wasn't any interest, plus doing this stuff, the interest rate wasn't as appealing as the banks were able to match or even have an interest rate that was lower than what we were able to. So we haven't been doing that kind of stuff for several years.
Okay. But you still do Ripon Main Street has a grant
Yeah. we
program
did-
of some sort?
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't do it with COVID, but
Yeah.
we've done it a few times now.
And grants are also available through the state, right?
No.
They're not, like, they don't reimburse for painting or,
Well, that's
Heating.
different. You know, that would be if it's a historic tax credit project. That's a little bit different. It's not,
is there a different category for it? Oh, yeah, tax credits. Okay,
yeah.
I stand corrected, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments on it? Otherwise, I think next month we'll go with the awnings and the signs and graphics in Sign Ordinance. And I'd like to invite Craig again. Please come.
Please.
Well, I met Craig in 1992, I think it was, when we bought our first building on Watson Street, and he's been a go-to guy ever since for questions and help, so I appreciate his help.
I was just a young punk back then, so
Yeah.
I learned a thing or two.
Weren't we all?
Great.
So, well, it's perfect. So if we have no other business on the design manual, we could go to the residential and commercial building application, and I got a text from building application for the informational plaque, which is what that Ethan Schneider came up with, and he's running that through the Ripon Historical Society. And I got a text from Steve Arball saying he couldn't make the meeting tonight, which is fine, but they're working on all of the there's a basic application form, but they're still working on getting everything together. It's not that they can't do it, because I know they can do it, but it's a work in progress yet.
I think part of it is, they have people that they need approvals from, just as most people do. I think that's where it's a little bit hung up.
Okay, and that was good, and I thank him for contacting me on that. But we can still get, as commission members, we can still get the word out to people that are interested on the street, that if they have a building and if you'd like to get it, you can contact Steve at the Historical Society or tell us, and we'll spread, forward the name. And then number 10, historic parking signage on Watson Street. Adam can speak to this more, but I do believe City Council may have conceptually approved money that may go for that to help defer the cost.
Yeah, so.
Ripon Main Street.
Yep, so the city was provided a sales tax allocation from Fond du Lac County. It's a new kind of shared revenue program that they have started. So this is its first year. They notified us late last year that this program was starting. So the allocation's around $51,333, I believe. And working through with staff and the mayor and just Craig, honestly, and looking at projects, priorities, and whatnot, the recommendation was provided by the council to plan the planned use for those funds to go toward streetscape improvements, wayfinding, signage, kind of a laundry list of capital projects that have been identified in the bid plan by the bid board and Main Street teams. So couple that with funds from Main Street, looking at potentially spending $65,000+ in downtown and in the bid area and in the community. So kind of wayfinding can branch out further, but really looking at directional signage, wayfinding, everything from stop signs with on a decorative pole. So Craig and myself, we've sort of started putting a budget together and identifying, everything from benches to banners to whatever. Craig's sort of taking the lead, but we'll identify that, bring it forward to the council in the coming months, and then hopefully, execute the project. The goal really is to try to not, have a half-hearted effort into it, but to complete something, to make it look complete. So we'll see how far we get with those dollars in a budget. But I think it, Craig has done the work, has engaged the public, has done everything needed to plan the plan, and it's on the shelf, only waiting for funding. So, and the ultimate goal is to drive more sales tax in the community to, in turn, reward the county with more money to continue to fund the project or fund the program for aid. So that was the justification, and we're working on. So the hope is, yes, I mean, if we have to come to this board and show you what we're doing, I think we
Usually
can do
want
that. But ultimately, the common council will make that decision. So that's been made very clear.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Items for next month's agenda. Anybody have any other, besides the design guidelines? I want to add two projects that I just want to make you aware of. Okay,
I don't know if they need to go on, but the Parks and Rec Committee was, the Historical Society came forward with two projects that they're implementing over the next year or so. One includes the replacement of the historical marker down at Soresco Park. So nicer, bigger, they're funding it. It's about a $7,000 project, and the city just has to say, yep, you can do it. And so the Parks and Rec Committee said more than willing to just replace it in its current location. If you're paying for it, all good. So they're working on that. And then also a cemetery historic tour that they'll be putting up signs, and I know Steve was working on that, but it's sort of a work off of the work of some college students over the summer to create a similar concept as the historic buildings, do almost a mobile walking tour. So when you go to the cemetery, you can scan information, and then it takes you on sort of a mobile tour because they've had some good success and have done a lot of work of identifying, the important people buried there. So just wanted to make you aware of both of those projects. Okay. So the Parks and Rec Committee said, go ahead with, move forward with both. No problems, so.
yeah, that sounds great.
Great.
Sounds like a good project.
Cost us nothing. They're taking care of it all.
That's even better.
I have a question on that matter. Where are you going with the old one?
The old,
The old signage?
Oh, from Soresco?
Historical Society?
no, honestly, my understanding of that is it has to be destroyed. It cannot go anywhere.
Oh, that's a shame.
It has to be destroyed.
Has to be destroyed.
They require that it be destroyed. That is a part of the state saying you can replace it. So the Historical Society, the city will help take it all down and prep the area and put in the new sign. But the old one, I believe, gets gone.
Okay.
Maybe they get it, I don't know, but it was made pretty clear that it's part of the deal.
That's a good,
If there
that was a
were a
great
group
question.
of ninja warriors, wink, wink, and they knew the date of the removal,
Yeah.
wink, wink,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Money talked. $100 bill.
That's bullshit.
Disappear.
Okay, any items for next month's agenda besides the design guidelines? Okay, hopefully we'll have a certificate or something we might have to approve, I don't know. Next meeting date,
March 1st?
March 1st? Okay, 6:30 again. And last is adjournment. Motion by Sarah and second by Eric to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.